Why was she the only one left standing at the edge of the hangar? The others had already moved inside, voices swallowed by the metallic echo of briefing rooms and the low thrum of generators. She lingered, hands buried in the pockets of a weathered jacket, pretending she was only taking in the night air. But the truth was simpler. She didn't want them to see her face yet, not with the storm still inside her. The desert wind carried dust across the tarmac, scratching at her eyes. Somewhere in the distance, a rotor spun up, beating against the silence like a restless heart. She should have joined them already. She should have walked into that room with confidence, like every operative was trained to do. But tonight wasn't like other nights. This mission wasn't like the others. And the man waiting inside, her commander, wasn't just any man. He was the one who had given her the look. That piercing, unblinking stare that had cut through her jokes, her armor, her carefully rehearsed defiance. She had tested his patience before. She had laughed when the tension was thickest, smiled when silence demanded respect. A way of saying, you don't own me, you don't control me. But the last time, he hadn't said a word. Just that look, cold, final. It had ended the joke. Now standing outside the hangar, she wondered if she'd pushed too far. The metal door groaned when she finally pulled it open. The room inside was cramped, dimly lit, paper maps taped to the walls, satellite images projected against the far end. Soldiers leaned forward on steel chairs, rifles leaning against their knees. They stopped talking when she entered. Not all of them, but enough. She felt it, the pause, the weight of eyes measuring her. The girl, the one who laughed too easily, the one who always seemed to be carrying something unsaid. She sat in the corner, her back straight, her gaze fixed not on the screen but on the commander. He stood near the map, arms folded, jaw tense. He didn't look at her. Not yet. Target compound. Northern Ridge, he said, his voice low, controlled. Intel says 3 guards on the south wall, 1 sniper in the tower, 2 vehicles in the yard. Primary objective isn't the weapons, it's the courier. She knew who he meant. She had read the file more times than anyone else in the room. She had memorized the courier's face, the grainy surveillance photos, the way he carried himself when he thought nobody was watching. And more than that, she remembered another face. A girl's face. Her sister. She blinked, forcing the image away. Not here, not now. But it came anyway, uninvited. Her sister's smile the last time she'd seen it. The phone call that never came. The official letter that had. The courier wasn't just another target. He was the reason her sister never made it home. That part of the story wasn't written in any file. She hadn't told anyone. Not yet. The commander's voice dragged her back. We're wheels up at 200. Silent entry, minimal exposure. Extraction in 10. Someone cleared his throat. Sir, what about the river crossing? The commander's eyes flicked to the map. We're not crossing it. That was a lie. She knew it. He knew it. Everyone in the room who had studied the terrain knew it. The only way in and out was across that river, but he didn't want to say it out loud. Didn't want to feed the fear already blooming in the men's faces. She almost smiled. The commander lied with precision. He cut truth into pieces, handed only what people could carry. It was something she almost admired about him. Almost. When the briefing ended, chairs scraped the floor, boots shuffled, murmured voices rose. She stayed seated until the room emptied. Only then did he speak. You waited outside. It wasn't a question. She met his eyes for the first time. That same stare, sharp, unforgiving, the look that said he could see through her, straight into the mess she tried to hide. I needed air, she said softly. You needed distance. She almost laughed, almost, but she didn't, not this time. Maybe, she admitted. He studied her for a long moment, then leaned closer, his voice barely more than a whisper. If you pull one stunt tonight, one smile when you should be silent, one word when silence is the difference between living and dying, he stopped, shook his head. Don't test me. She wanted to say something, to push back, to tell him that she had more at stake in this mission than anyone else. But the words caught in her throat, because if she said them, she'd have to tell him everything about her sister, about the real reason she had volunteered for this op, about why she hadn't been sleeping. Instead, she just nodded. And for the first time, he looked almost relieved. The flight was long, the kind of silence that pressed into your ears until you heard only your own heartbeat. She sat between two men, their weapons resting across their laps. One was young, barely shaving. He kept tapping his foot over and over until she placed her hand gently on his knee. He looked at her, startled. "Breathe," she whispered. He blinked, then nodded, his leg finally still. She wondered what he saw when he looked at her, a woman who belonged here, or someone trying too hard to prove she did. The helicopter pitched slightly as it descended. Through the narrow window she saw the land spread out below, jagged ridges, dark valleys, a river glinting under the pale wash of moonlight. She closed her eyes. For a moment she wasn't here. She was somewhere else. A childhood memory. Running through fields with her sister, laughing, barefoot, the world small and innocent. Then the rotors slowed. The rear ramp dropped. The night air rushed in, dry, sharp, alive. Boots hit the dirt, voices whispered commands, shadows moved. She gripped her rifle tighter. Her hands didn't tremble, not outwardly, but inside her pulse hammered. Every step forward felt heavier. The river came sooner than she expected. A black ribbon cutting across the valley, water moving fast and cold. They crossed single file, boots slipping on rocks, the current pulling at their legs. She thought of the commander's lie. "We're not crossing it." Halfway across, the young soldier stumbled. She grabbed his arm, held him steady until he found his footing again. He gave her a look, a mix of gratitude and shame. She said nothing. Sometimes silence was kinder than words. On the far side, the compound loomed in the distance. A shape against the horizon, lights faint, movement barely visible. She raised her scope. One guard smoking on the south wall, another packing. A dog chained near the gate, restless, ears pricked. She lowered the scope, heart pounding. Somewhere inside those walls was the courier, the man who had unknowingly torn her life apart. But there was something she hadn't told them, not yet. The courier wasn't just a target, he was blood, family blood. Her sister's killer, yes, but also her sister's informant. The one who had betrayed her. And she would be the one to face him. Why did her breath catch when she saw the faint glow in the tower window? It wasn't the light itself. It was the memory that came with it. Nights staring out of windows, waiting for someone who never came home, waiting for news that never turned good. She shook her head, forcing herself back into the present. The tower guard was moving, slowly, methodically, rifle slung, scanning the valley. The commander's hand signal cut through the darkness. "Split 2 teams." She knew what it meant. He didn't trust her at his side tonight. Not fully. He was sending her left, flanking, keeping her at the edges, close enough to act, far enough not to break the silence with a joke or a word that didn't belong. The young soldier, the one whose leg had trembled on the flight, was assigned to her. She saw the fear in his eyes, the way his hands gripped his weapon too tight. She wondered if the commander did it on purpose. Pair the unpredictable woman with the boy who hadn't learned how to hide his nerves. Maybe he thought they would balance each other out. They moved low, crawling through brush, the earth damp beneath their palms. Every sound felt louder in the silence, the crunch of a pebble, the scrape of gear against rock. She kept her eyes on the wall, on the dog at the gate. Its ears twitched, nose lifting, but the wind was on their side. Her pulse slowed as she settled into position. This part she knew well, the waiting, the stillness, the watching. Her breathing became shallow, controlled. She counted the guard's steps, the rhythm of his packing. 1, 2, pause, turn, 3, 4, pause, turn. The kind of repetition that made people careless. The boy beside her shifted. She touched his arm, firm, steady. "Patience," she whispered. His shoulders dropped a little. He tried to match her breathing. She wondered if her sister had been patient, waiting in that safe house years ago, or if she had felt the panic rising, the sense that something was wrong. Did she know who had betrayed her? Did she call his name before the end? Her jaw tightened, focus, not here, not now. The signal came, a faint click in the earpiece. The first team had cut the outer fence. The distraction would come soon. She raised her rifle, sighting down the scope, crosshairs steady on the guard's chest. She waited. The boy whispered, "Should I?" "Not yet." The light in the tower flickered out. Darkness, silence thicker than before, and then movement. Two shadows slipping out of the yard, moving fast toward the north wall. The dog barked, low and sharp. The packing guard turned, distracted. She fired. The sound cracked through the night, short and final. The guard dropped, cigarette scattering embers against the dirt. The boy inhaled sharply, then exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. "Move," she hissed. They rushed forward, keeping low. The wall loomed closer, rough stone catching what little moonlight remained. The first team was already inside, shadows disappearing between buildings. She climbed, boots gripping cracks, palms scraping. At the top she paused, scanning. No eyes on them, no shouts. Just the dog still barking, chained and frantic. The boy scrambled beside her, less graceful, nearly losing his grip before she pulled him up. For a second their eyes met. He was too young, too unready. She wondered if he'd survive the night. On the other side the ground was uneven, dirt mixing with broken concrete. The compound smelled of oil and smoke, faint cooking fires long extinguished. They moved building to building, pressing against walls, scanning corners. Every sound seemed amplified, the drip of water, the creak of wood, their own breathing. Then voices. Low, conversing, two men near the vehicles. Their words indistinct, but the tone was casual, not alarmed. They didn't know yet. The boy raised his rifle, finger twitching on the trigger. She pushed his barrel down. "Not them," she mouthed. He frowned, confused, but obeyed. Not them, not yet. Because the man they wanted wasn't just any guard. He was inside, waiting, carrying something that mattered more than weapons or supplies, a message, a code, a link in a chain that had already taken her sister's life. And then it came. A door creaked open across the yard. A figure stepped into the faint light. Slim build, scarf wrapped around his neck, a satchel slung across his shoulder. He lit a cigarette, shielding the flame with his hand. For a moment she saw his face in full. The courier. Her breath stopped. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times. In her mind she had screamed at him, cursed at him, asked him why. But now seeing him only meters away, her throat locked. No words, just silence. The commander's voice crackled in her ear. "Target in sight, hold position." She froze because holding was impossible. Every muscle in her body screamed to move, to act, to close the distance and end it. But she stayed still, teeth clenched, chest burning with restraint. The boy whispered, "Is that him?" She nodded barely. The courier exhaled smoke, then dropped the cigarette, grinding it under his heel. He glanced around as if sensing something. For a moment his eyes passed right over her position. She ducked lower, pulse hammering. Did he see? Did he feel the weight of her stare? The commander again. "We take him alive." Alive? The word hit harder than any bullet. She wanted him dead, wanted his blood to mark the dirt, wanted the silence of revenge. But alive meant answers. Alive meant questions she wasn't sure she could bear to hear. The boy beside her whispered again, "Why not now? We have a shot." She looked at him, really looked. He was shaking, sweat dripping down his temple. He didn't understand that missions weren't math. They weren't straight lines. They were weight, history, choices that carved into you. Her voice was steady, because sometimes waiting saves more lives than acting. But inside, she wasn't sure she believed it. The courier moved back inside, door closing behind him. Shadows swallowed him whole. The commander's voice. Windows closing. East team breach in 90 seconds. She inhaled sharply, steadying herself. 90 seconds to decide. 90 seconds to silence the part of her screaming for revenge. 90 seconds to choose between what the mission demanded and what her heart wanted. The boy whispered, "What happens if he runs?" She didn't answer because she already knew. If he ran, she'd chase him. Orders be damned. The seconds dragged. The night thickened. Somewhere a dog whimpered, then fell silent. The compound seemed to hold its breath. Then an explosion, small, controlled, but enough to shatter the quiet. The east wall breached. Voices rose, shouts in another language. Boots pounded, doors slammed. Chaos spilled into the yard. She moved without thinking, dragging the boy with her. The mission had begun. And yet, under the noise, under the adrenaline, one thought burned louder than the rest. She wasn't here just for the mission. She was here for him. The courier. The man who carried her sister's death like a shadow. And tonight she would face him. Why did her hand stop shaking the moment the first door blew open? Maybe because chaos was easier than silence. In silence, there was room for memory, for faces you didn't want to see. But in chaos, there was only movement, breath, and instinct. The explosion was controlled, but it echoed like thunder in the valley. Dust filled the air, brick fragments scattered across the yard. Shouts cut through the night, sharp and panicked. The dog barked furiously, chain rattling. "Move, move," voices barked through earpieces. She pushed the boy ahead, rifle raised, eyes scanning. Her world narrowed to corners, shadows, and lines of fire. The other team surged through the breach, spreading like water into cracks of the compound. Muzzle flashes sparked. A man screamed. Silence swallowed him after. Her boots hit stone, steps slick with dust. She hugged the wall, listening, a creak, a shuffle of feet. She signaled the boy 2 fingers, then a point toward the doorway. He nodded, lips pressed thin, trying to hide the tremor in his jaw. She kicked the door. It swung open, revealing only empty chairs and a lantern swinging from its hook. The boy exhaled sharply. Relief. But relief was dangerous. Relief made you slow. She tugged him forward, scanning every shadow. Then she froze. A voice. Soft, urgent, speaking in a language she hadn't heard since childhood. Her stomach twisted. She knew that dialect, knew the rhythm of it. Her father had spoken it when they were small, back before he left, before her mother struggled to raise 2 girls alone, before the world taught her what absence tasted like. She leaned closer, pressing her ear to the wood of the next door. 2 men inside, speaking fast. She caught fragments, courier, satchel, leaving before dawn. Her throat tightened. He was in there. The commander's voice crackled through her comm. "South team status." She tapped her mic once. Silence. She couldn't answer, because if she spoke, her voice would betray her, too much in it, too much she couldn't explain. The boy mouthed orders. Her hand trembled slightly as she raised 3 fingers. On 3, breach. He nodded, clutching his rifle like it was the only thing tethering him to courage. She counted 1, 2. The door burst open from the inside. A man stumbled out, rifle in hand, eyes wide with panic. She fired before he could raise it. He dropped. The boy flinched at the spray, but she was already pushing inside. The room was dim, smoke curling from a stove in the corner. Papers scattered across a table. And there, standing with the satchel slung tight across his chest, was the courier. Their eyes met. For a moment, the noise of the compound vanished. The shouts, the gunfire, the chaos, it all dimmed, leaving only the thud of her heartbeat and the unbearable weight of recognition. He froze too. His hand hovered near his weapon, but he didn't draw. His eyes narrowed, searching her face. Something passed across his expression, confusion, maybe recognition. "Wait," he said, his voice rough, accented. "You." The boy raised his rifle, hands up. The courier didn't move. His gaze never left hers. And she felt it, like the world folding in on itself. This wasn't just revenge, this wasn't just justice. There was more here, something she didn't know yet. The commander's voice barked in her ear. Target confirmed, take him alive. Alive. Always alive. But her finger twitched on the trigger. Every muscle begged her to end it, to erase the face that haunted her, to silence the laughter she would never hear again. Do it, the boy whispered, desperate, eyes darting between them. She hesitated. Why? Because the courier was looking at her like he knew her, like he had seen her before, like he carried a piece of her story she hadn't uncovered yet. He spoke again, softer now. Your sister, she trusted me. The words hit like a blade. She staggered back, bile rising in her throat. The boy's eyes widened. What did he say? She couldn't answer, couldn't breathe. The air thickened. The courier took a step forward, hands raised, palms open. I didn't betray her, not how you think. Her rifle shook. Her finger hovered on the trigger. She wanted to scream, to demand the truth, but the commander's voice cut in again, sharp, demanding. Secure him now. The boy lunged forward, forcing the courier to the ground, zip-tying his wrists. The man didn't fight, didn't resist. He just kept looking at her, his eyes holding something she couldn't read. She lowered her rifle slowly. Her chest burned. Every instinct told her this wasn't over, that his words weren't a ploy, that there was more, something hidden, something that could tear open wounds she hadn't yet stitched shut. The satchel was pulled off him, tossed onto the table. The boy unzipped it, hands shaking. Inside were documents, drives, a phone with cracked glass, evidence, proof. But proof of what? Of betrayal. Or of something else entirely. Her hands brushed the satchel. She felt the weight of it, heavier than it should be, like it carried not just information but answers she wasn't ready to face. The commander stormed in, boots heavy, eyes sharp. He scanned the room, then the courier on the ground, then her. His jaw clenched. You hesitated. It wasn't a question. She met his stare, refusing to flinch. Yes, she said simply. His eyes narrowed, but he didn't press. Not yet. Instead, he turned to the boy. Secure the package, prep for extraction. The boy obeyed, dragging the courier to his feet, pushing him toward the door. The man stumbled but didn't resist. His eyes found hers one last time before disappearing into the night. She stood frozen, rifle hanging limp at her side. Her heart was a storm. The commander stepped closer, voice low, meant only for her. Whatever's going on inside your head, bury it. Not tonight. She wanted to tell him everything, about her sister, about the file, about the voice that had just shattered her, but she couldn't, not yet. Because if she spoke, the mission would unravel. And missions didn't care about grief. They left the compound burning, flames licking the night sky, smoke trailing into the stars. The courier was dragged into the helicopter, bound and silent. She climbed in after, sitting across from him. Their eyes met once more, and she knew this wasn't finished. Not even close. As the rotors roared and the ground dropped away, she whispered to herself, too low for anyone else to hear. If you're lying, I'll end it, but if you're not, God help me. The courier smiled faintly, not mockery, not defiance, something else. Something closer to sorrow. Why did the air inside the helicopter feel heavier than the night outside? The courier sat bound in the center bench, wrists tight behind his back, head lowered but eyes never still. Across from him sat the boy, rifle aimed, finger trembling on the trigger guard, and beside the boy her, silent, watching. The commander stood near the cockpit, one hand gripping a strap, the other holding his headset. His eyes kept flicking back, measuring, calculating, always aware. He didn't trust her. Not tonight. Maybe not ever again. The blades thundered above, chopping the silence into fragments. But under the noise she heard it, the courier's breathing. Steady, controlled, like a man who knew more than anyone else in the room. She leaned forward slightly, her voice low. Why did you say that? The boy shifted, nervous. Don't talk to him. Her eyes stayed on the courier. You said she trusted you, my sister. Why? The man raised his gaze, dark eyes meeting hers. There was no mockery in them, no fear either, only something she couldn't name. She knew the truth, he said. The words cut deeper than any knife. The boy snapped, shut up, his rifle pressed tighter against his shoulder. But the courier didn't flinch. His eyes never left hers. She trusted me because she knew I wasn't the one who betrayed her. Her stomach clenched, her pulse hammered. She wanted to scream at him, to demand names, details, proof, but the commander's voice barked over the noise. Enough, no one speaks until we land. She sat back, fists tight in her lap. The boy's chest heaved, sweat dripping down his temple. He was young, too young, caught between fear of the prisoner and awe of the woman beside him. Minutes stretched into hours. The desert blurred beneath them, ridges and rivers swallowed by darkness. Every second felt like a weight pressing against her chest. Finally, the base lights flickered in the distance, small beacons in the endless night. The helicopter descended, skids hitting the tarmac with a jolt. Doors flung open, cold air rushing in. Voices shouted commands. Boots hit concrete. The courier was dragged out first, shoved toward a waiting vehicle. She followed, her eyes locked on him. The commander's hand gripped her shoulder briefly, firm, a warning. Inside the secure building, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and unforgiving. The walls smelled of bleach and dust. They led the courier into a small room, metal table, 2 chairs, a camera in the corner. The boy stayed outside, shifting from foot to foot, his rifle clutched like a lifeline. The commander gestured toward the door. Sit. She hesitated. You want me here. His jaw tightened. I want you silent. She sat, the courier across from her, hands cuffed to the table. The commander leaned against the wall, arms folded, eyes sharp. For a long moment, no one spoke. The hum of the lights filled the silence. Then the courier chuckled softly, shaking his head. You think this changes anything? The commander's voice was ice. It changes everything. But the man ignored him. His eyes found her again. You don't even know what she was carrying, do you? Her throat tightened. What are you talking about? The commander slammed his hand on the table. Talk to me, not her. But the courier only smiled faintly. She deserves to know. Her heart pounded. Every word from him was a blade, cutting deeper into wounds she thought she'd buried. The commander pulled out a folder, slamming it on the table. Photos spilled, surveillance shots, maps, intercepted messages. He shoved one toward the courier. Explain this. The man glanced at it, then back at her. She died because of what she knew, not because of me. Her hands trembled under the table. She clenched them into fists, nails biting into her palms. The commander's jaw tightened. You expect us to believe that? The courier's voice softened. I expect her to. Silence thick, unbearable. Her mind raced. Memories of her sister, phone calls, late nights, whispered fears. Had there been signs, clues she'd missed? Had her sister tried to tell her something before it was too late? She whispered, barely audible, then who? The commander turned sharply. Don't. But it was too late. The courier leaned forward, chains rattling. His eyes burned with something fierce. Someone closer than you think. Her stomach dropped, the room tilted. She gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. The commander slammed the folder shut, face hard. That's enough, he's playing you. But she couldn't shake the look in the courier's eyes. It wasn't the look of a liar, it was something else, something truer. The commander barked orders. Guards entered, dragging the courier out. His voice echoed down the hall as he was taken away. She knew the truth, that's why they silenced her. And then silence. She sat frozen, staring at the empty chair across from her. Her chest rose and fell too fast. Her skin felt cold, clammy. The commander stood in front of her, blocking her view, his voice firm. "Don't let him in your head." Her eyes snapped up, meeting his. What if he's right? His stare didn't break. Then you'll have to decide what matters more, truth or survival. The words echoed in her chest long after he walked out. That night she lay awake in the barracks, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of generators outside. Sleep wouldn't come. Her sister's face haunted her, overlapping with the courier's words. "Someone closer than you think." Her fists tightened in the dark. She had come here for revenge. But revenge wasn't simple anymore. Not when betrayal might be hiding in shadows she hadn't even looked at yet. And as dawn broke, painting the horizon in pale fire, she knew one thing with certainty. The mission wasn't over. It was only beginning. The night refused to end. By the time the order came to move the courier to another site, dawn was a faint bruise on the horizon. She stood at the edge of the landing zone, helmet under her arm, watching as the convoy assembled. Engines hummed, radios crackled, boots struck concrete in hurried rhythms. The commander barked instructions, his voice sharp enough to cut steel. The boy hovered near her, pale but determined, rifle strapped across his chest. He looked older already, as if the interrogation room had carved years into him overnight. The courier emerged between two guards, wrists chained, ankles shackled, eyes hooded but alert. He walked like a man who knew where every bullet would come from before it did. She felt the air shift, too tense, too brittle, her gut twisted. The commander's voice broke through her thoughts. "3 vehicles. He goes in the middle, no stops, no contact, we keep it clean." She nodded, sliding her helmet on, the world narrowing to the hiss of comms in her ear. The convoy rolled out, tires crunching gravel, engines growling against the silence. She sat in the second vehicle, across from the courier, knees brushing metal. The boy was beside her, hands gripping his rifle so tight his knuckles gleamed white. The courier's head tilted, faint smile tugging his mouth. "You feel it too." Her eyes narrowed. "Feel what?" He leaned closer, chains rattling. "That something's wrong." Before she could answer, the world erupted. The blast hit the first vehicle, fire clawing the sky, debris raining down. The shockwaves slammed into their truck, windows shattering, metal groaning. Screams tore through the comms. "Contact, contact." Gunfire erupted from the ridges. Tracers sliced the air, orange streaks against pale dawn. Bullets punched into steel, ricocheting inside the cabin. The boy screamed, ducking, rifle raised. "Move, move." The commander's voice roared through the headset. The driver swerved, tires screeching, but another explosion tore the road ahead, flipping the lead wreck onto its side. Smoke swallowed the convoy. She slammed against the seat, lungs burning, ears ringing. Through the haze she saw shadows on the ridge, silhouettes with rifles, moving with deadly precision. Ambush planned perfect. The courier leaned close, voice calm amid chaos. "I told you, closer than you think." Her blood froze. The boy fired blindly out the shattered window, yelling something she couldn't hear. Her training snapped back, raw instinct taking over. She shoved the courier down, shielded him with her body even as part of her screamed to let him die. But something deeper said no, he was worth more alive. "Out, out," she shouted, dragging the boy toward the door. The commander's vehicle had swerved behind them, machine gun hammering rounds into the ridge. But the enemy was everywhere, fire pouring from every direction. She yanked the boy down behind the wreckage, bullets sparking off metal. He gasped, eyes wide, rifle trembling in his grip. "Stay low, cover me." He nodded, lips pressed tight, fear and resolve warring in his eyes. She turned back for the courier. Guards were dragging him out, but one went down instantly, chest punched open by a sniper's shot. The courier stumbled, half crawling, chains rattling. She sprinted, grabbed him by the collar, yanked him behind the burning truck. Smoke stung her eyes, grit filled her lungs. The commander's voice crackled through the headset, furious. They knew the route, someone leaked it. Her chest tightened, someone closer than you think. The courier's eyes met hers through the smoke, steady, unwavering. Now you see. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but bullets chewed the ground inches away. The boy opened fire, his shots sharp, controlled despite the tremor in his arms. The commander's men pushed forward, laying down, suppressing fire. Explosions thundered across the ridge. The enemy faltered, then broke, retreating into the rocks. Silence returned like an aftershock. Smoke curled. Bodies lay still in the dirt. The convoy was shredded, half the men gone. Her ears rang. Her chest heaved. The courier knelt beside her, chains blackened by smoke. His words were quiet, almost gentle. They'll try again, and it won't be from the outside next time. The commander stormed over, face twisted with fury. Get him back in the truck. She rose slowly, locking eyes with him. They knew the route. His jaw flexed. We'll find the leak. Her voice was colder than the dawn wind. Will we? For a moment the world held its breath. Then he grabbed the courier, shoved him toward the remaining vehicle. The boy stumbled to her side, rifle hanging limp, eyes glassy. He whispered, "He's right, isn't he?" She didn't answer, couldn't. As the convoy limped back toward base, smoke trailing behind them like a wound across the horizon, her thoughts spiraled. Her sister, the courier, the ambush. Truth or survival? And somewhere in the shadows between, a betrayal that felt closer than her own skin. The walls of the base had never felt so small. Concrete, barbed wire, searchlights carving across the night. But for her, it was the eyes that caged her, the looks from men who had bled beside her, now unsure if she belonged among them. She sat at the edge of the briefing table, helmet discarded, hands locked together to keep them from shaking. The boy sat 2 chairs down, silent, face pale, as if the smoke of the ambush still clung to him. The commander paced, boots striking sharp against the floor, every step a sentence. They knew our route, they knew the timing, they knew the exact ridge to cut us off. His voice was low, dangerous. That wasn't luck, that was information, and information doesn't bleed from stone. The room was silent except for the hum of the overhead fan. The courier sat shackled in the corner, 2 guards flanking him. Despite the bruises, despite the chains, he looked almost serene, watching, listening. She felt his gaze burn against her skin. The commander turned, his finger stabbed the air. One of you gave it up. The boy flinched. Another soldier shifted in his chair, muttering a curse. Someone else whispered, not possible. But the words had no weight, not after the ambush, not after the dead were counted. Her throat ached with the urge to speak. She wanted to say it wasn't her. She wanted to defend the boy. She wanted to tell them she'd seen the courier's eyes, heard his words, felt the certainty in his voice. But to speak was to accuse, and accusation could cut deeper than bullets. So she stayed silent. The commander's eyes swept the room, sharp and cold. Finally, they settled on her. You pulled him out, you shielded him. Her chest tightened. He was more valuable alive. Or you needed him alive. The accusation landed heavy. The room shifted. Men she had eaten with, trained with, bled with, all leaning back, eyes narrowing. The boy's voice cracked the silence. She saved us. The commander snapped, quiet. The boy's hands balled into fists. She dragged me out when I froze. She pulled him down when the sniper had him, without her. That's enough. The commander's fist slammed the table, papers scattered. The boy bit down hard, words swallowed but not forgotten. The commander leaned in close, his voice low but sharp enough to cut. You think loyalty erases suspicion. It doesn't, not here, not tonight. Her stomach churned. For the first time, she realized it wasn't just enemy fire she had to survive. It was the eyes in this room. Hours passed like days. Soldiers were pulled one by one into the interrogation wing. Doors shut. Voices rose. Some returned pale, some didn't return at all. She waited, the boy beside her, the courier across from her. His calm never cracked. Even as men shouted, even as boots scraped concrete, even as suspicion poisoned the air, he sat, watching her, like he was waiting for her to understand something she didn't want to face. Finally, her name was called. The corridor to the interrogation room was long, lights buzzing overhead, walls sweating damp. Her boots echoed louder than her heartbeat. Inside, the room was bare. One chair, one table, two men with faces carved from stone. They asked questions, again and again. Where were you the night before? Who did you speak to? Why shield him? Why not let him die? Her answers came steady at first, then faltered, then wavered under the weight of repetition. Every silence felt like guilt, every hesitation like a confession. At one point, one of them leaned closer, eyes unblinking. Maybe you don't even know you did it. Her chest caved. For a moment, she doubted herself. Had she said something, left something open? Did her need to protect the boy, her obsession with her sister's last message, blind her to something she didn't see? When they released her hours later, the base felt smaller than ever. The boy was waiting in the corridor. His eyes searched hers, desperate. They asked me about you. Her pulse stuttered. What did you say? That you'd never, that you couldn't. His words broke, but they didn't believe me. She wanted to put her hand on his shoulder to promise him it would be fine, but promises had no power here. Only suspicion, only silence. That night she couldn't sleep. The bunks felt like cages. Every sound, every creak, every sigh was amplified. The boy shifted restlessly 2 beds away. The commander's door never closed, boots packing long into the dark. She slipped outside. The night air was cold, biting. She lit a cigarette, though she rarely smoked. The ember glowed in the dark, fragile, temporary. The courier's voice startled her. They'll never trust you again. She spun. He was behind the wire, chained, guarded, yet his voice carried, low and certain. They'll keep you close, but never close enough, not after today. Her fists clenched. And you think they'll trust you? His smile was thin. I don't need their trust, only yours. The words hit like a blade. Why hers, why her? The ember burned low. She let the cigarette drop, crushed it beneath her boot, but the weight in her chest didn't leave. By morning, orders came down. The courier was to be moved again, this time by air. Less ground to cover, fewer ambush points. But as she strapped into the aircraft, as the rotors thundered, as the base shrank below them, she couldn't shake his words. They'll never trust you again. The boy leaned close, voice almost lost to the roar of the engines. If it's not you, then who? She looked out at the endless desert, a horizon with no answers. Someone close, closer than she dared admit. The helicopter lifted off like a beast, shaking itself awake. Rotors thundered, vibrating through the steel frame, drowning voices in a storm of sound. She sat strapped in, rifle across her chest, eyes scanning the cabin. Every detail felt sharp, etched in light and shadow. The boy sat across from her, pale under the green glow of the cabin lights. He held himself rigid, knuckles white against his weapon. Beside him, the courier was chained to the floor, wrists and ankles locked. 2 guards flanked him, rifles pointed down, but their eyes never left him. The commander sat near the cockpit, headset on, barking clipped orders to the pilots. His jaw was tight, shoulders stiff. He hadn't looked at her since dawn. She tried not to notice, tried not to feel the weight of his silence pressing against her chest. The helicopter tilted east, chasing the horizon. The desert below stretched endless, a canvas of stone and shadow. Dawn painted it in bruised purples and muted golds. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the vibration roll through her body. She tried to hear her sister's voice in the chaos, tried to remember the last message, the last fragile thread tying her to something beyond this war. But the only voice that came was his. The courier leaned forward, chains clinking, lips curving in the half-light. "You hear it, don't you?" Her eyes snapped open. "What?" The silence beneath the noise. His gaze cut through the roar of the blades. "It's always louder." Her breath caught. She wanted to ignore him, to shut him out, but his words clung like dust in her throat. The boy frowned. "Don't listen to him." But it was too late. The courier smiled faintly, as if he'd already won. Minutes passed, the horizon shifted, the engines droned steady. Yet something felt wrong, not in the desert below, not in the air around them, inside. A sound too soft, too deliberate cut through the thrum. Clicking. Her eyes flicked down, a panel beneath the seats, loose, just enough to show wires. Her pulse spiked. She reached with her boot, nudged the edge. The panel shifted easily, too easily. Her chest tightened. She leaned toward the boy, voice low, drowned by the rotors. "Something here." He followed her eyes, face blanching. The commander noticed the movement. "What is it?" She opened her mouth, and the helicopter lurched. Not turbulence, not wind. A violent shudder, as if the machine itself had been struck. The pilot's voice cracked through the headset, sharp and panicked. "System failure, rear hydraulics." The cabin tilted. Men slammed against steel. The courier grinned like a prophet watching the world burn. The boy screamed, clutching his seat harness. "What's happening?" Smoke bled from the panel she'd noticed. Sparks spat. A smell of burning plastic filled the air. Sabotage. Her gut twisted. Someone had planted it before takeoff, someone inside the base. The commander fought his way down the cabin, shouting orders. "Stay strapped, stay calm." His voice shook despite the words. The pilot's voice again, broken with static. "We've lost tail control, we're going down." The desert below spun. The horizon tipped sideways. Her breath came ragged. She locked eyes with the boy, then the courier. He smiled through the chaos, chains rattling with each violent shake. "They'll blame you," he whispered. "You know they will." Her hands shook as she braced against the wall. "Shut up." The commander slammed into the frame beside her, grabbing the comms cord. His face was inches from hers, eyes wild. "If we survive this," he stopped, as if swallowing words that burned too much to say. The boy's scream tore through the roar. "Brace." Impact. The world shattered. Steel screamed against rock. Glass exploded into shards. The helicopter tore across the desert floor, rolling, splintering, throwing bodies like rag dolls. Sand surged in through the cracks, choking, blinding. Then silence. Not peace, the kind of silence that follows devastation. Her chest heaved, lungs fighting for air. Her ears rang. Blood slicked her forehead, warm against the cold grit. She forced herself upright. Pain screamed through her ribs, but she ignored it. The boy, where was he? Her eyes found him, crumpled but breathing, tangled in straps. His chest rose shallow but steady. Relief cut through the haze. The commander was slumped against the wreckage, face pale, blood at his temple. Alive but barely. And the courier? He sat upright, chains broken. Her blood froze. "Hell." He rose slowly, almost calmly, stepping through the twisted wreckage. The guards were gone, dead or thrown clear. He turned to her, face lit by the rising sun. "Now do you understand?" Her hand went to her rifle, but it was gone, lost in the wreck. She scrambled, heart pounding, searching through smoke and sand. The boy groaned, trying to rise. She reached for him, pulling him close, shielding him. The courier crouched low, eyes sharp, words steady. "This wasn't about me escaping. It was about you seeing who's left standing." Her breath came ragged. Dust stung her eyes. The commander stirred, moaning, too weak to move. She tightened her grip on the boy. Her voice was hoarse but unbroken. "If you run, they'll hunt you." He tilted his head. "Maybe, but not before the truth eats you alive." He stood, walked past her, toward the desert horizon. chains dragging behind him, broken links glinting in the dawn. She wanted to shoot, to stop him, to end it here. But her hands were empty. And her heart was heavier than any weapon. The boy's whisper was cracked, broken. He knew the whole time. She pulled him close, eyes locked on the shrinking figure of the courier. Each step he took away from the wreckage felt like a sentence against her. When the dust settled, when the silence deepened, only one thought remained. Someone had helped him, someone inside the base, someone close. And now the proof was walking free into the desert. The desert was endless. She staggered across it, boots dragging through sand and stone, lungs raw with smoke and dust. Behind her, the wreck still burned, a black scar on the horizon. Ahead, the courier's figure was shrinking, step by step, chains dragging like echoes. The boy limped beside her, arms slung over her shoulder. His breaths were shallow, face pale, but his eyes burned with the same fire she felt in her chest. "We can't let him vanish," he whispered, voice brittle. She tightened her grip. "We won't." The commander had been too injured to follow, barely conscious when they pulled him from the wreck. She left him propped against the twisted steel, praying rescue would come before the desert did what bullets hadn't. Now it was just her, and the boy, and the man who walked free with secrets too heavy to lose. The sun rose higher, bleeding heat into the sky. Each step felt heavier, sand swallowing their boots. Sweat stung her eyes, mixing with the blood at her temple. But the courier never slowed. He moved like a man guided by something unseen, not desperate, not frantic, purposeful. The boy's voice cracked. "Why isn't he running?" She didn't answer because she knew. He didn't need to. They followed for hours. The wreck shrank to nothing behind them. Shadows stretched long, then broke apart under the noon blaze. The desert was merciless, heat pressing from above, reflection burning from below. Finally, the courier stopped. He stood at the edge of a dry ravine, chains clinking faintly in the wind. Slowly, he turned. His eyes met hers, steady, almost kind. "I knew you follow." Her hand tightened on the boy's arm. She eased him onto a rock, then stepped forward. Her rifle was gone, her sidearm lost. Only a knife remained, strapped to her thigh. "You sabotaged the bird," she said, voice raw. He tilted his head. "I didn't touch it." Her jaw clenched. "Someone did." "Yes," his eyes gleamed. "Someone close, someone you eat with, someone you trust." Her stomach twisted. "Names." He smiled faintly. "If I give you a name, will it matter? Or will you spend the rest of your days wondering if I lied?" Her breath hitched. The boy shouted, voice breaking, "Stop playing with her." The courier looked at him, not unkindly. "You think this is a game?" He stepped closer, chains dragging over stone. "She already knows the truth, she just doesn't want to admit it." Her fists curled. She wanted to strike him, to silence him, but his words pressed against her like the desert heat, inescapable. Her sister's voice echoed in memory. "Don't trust the silence." She whispered almost to herself, "Why me?" The courier's smile faded. "Because you still care. You carry grief like a weapon, but you haven't let it poison you. That makes you dangerous." The boy groaned, pushing himself upright. "He's trying to break you." But she wasn't sure. Every word felt like truth twisted, just enough to wound. She stepped closer, knife in hand, the desert wind whipping around them. "If I take you back, they'll bury you so deep you'll forget your own name." He didn't flinch. "And if you kill me, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if I was your last chance at the truth." The knife trembled in her grip. Her throat burned. The boy's voice cracked. "Don't listen, just end it." But her hand wouldn't move. For a long moment, the desert held its breath. Then the courier stepped closer, chains scraping stone. His voice dropped, almost a whisper. "It wasn't me who betrayed you. It was someone you salute, someone you follow without question." Her chest caved. The commander. Memories flickered, his orders, his fury, the silence in his eyes whenever the courier spoke. Had it been there all along? Had she been blind? The knife slipped from her hand, clattering against stone. The courier's smile was small, almost sad. "Now you see." But before he could move again, a shot cracked the air. The courier jerked, chains rattling, a dark bloom spreading across his chest. She spun. The boy stood, rifle shaking in his hands, smoke curling from the barrel. His face was pale, eyes wide, tears streaking through the dust. He wouldn't stop," the boy whispered. The courier sank to his knees, breath ragged, eyes never leaving hers. Blood stained the sand beneath him, bright against pale stone. His final words came soft, almost tender, "Closer than you think." Then silence. The boy dropped the rifle, knees buckling. I didn't mean to." She caught him, pulled him close, held him against her chest as the desert wind howled around them. Her eyes stayed on the courier's body, chains gleaming in the sun. "Closer than you think." Rescue came hours later, rotors thundering, dust spiraling. Medics swarmed, voices sharp, hands pulling, questions shouted. But she barely heard them. Her eyes stayed on the horizon, where the courier had walked free until the end. Later, when reports were written, when questions were asked, when suspicion twisted through the ranks like smoke through cracks, she spoke little. She gave them the facts, the crash, the pursuit, the boy's shot, nothing more. Because the rest, the suspicion, the betrayal, the weight of words whispered in the desert, was a truth she carried alone. Nights after, she sat in silence, watching the horizon from the edge of the base. The boy slept inside, restless but alive. The commander walked the corridors again, face scarred, eyes unreadable. And she smoked another cigarette, ember glowing fragile in the dark. Sometimes she thought of her sister, sometimes of the courier, sometimes of the boy's trembling hands. But mostly she thought of silence. The silence beneath the noise. The silence that never lies. And she understood now. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. The ember burned low, and the desert night swallowed it whole.